So, we're going to talk about Kamala Harris here a little bit. I want to just another insight of what type of person she is, the way she feels towards black people. And I'm going to read just probably like one paragraph of this article from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. And this is from occ.treasury.gov, so it's official government site. So, like much else that came out of the Civil War, the Freedmen's Savings Bank, officially the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company, Freedmen, like freed man, yes, began with a sense of high moral purpose. Its founders understood that the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which abolished slavery, was only the start down the long road toward full participation in American society for former slaves. Simply to survive the transition to a system based on free labor, they would need food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. But in the longer term, if they were to have a meaningful chance to succeed in American society, they would also need education, legal services, financial services, and capital. So that's all I'm going to read that to give you a basic foundation of where we're coming from. And this is Kamala Harris speaking on the Freedmen's Bank and what she would like to do with the Freedmen's Bank.
With Janet Yellen over the years, and you know that she's an extraordinary fighter for the working people of America. And she's been an extraordinary partner to me and the president as we work on the issue of ensuring that all people in our nation have the ability and the capacity to realize their dreams, and that access to capital will not be a barrier to those achievements. So thank you, Secretary.
So there's the first sign. She said, all people in our nation. Remember what Freedmen's Bank is about. First thing she said is all people.
Secretary Yellen, and everyone here, this is a room full of leaders. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. So I will begin with some history, which I think is familiar with many people in this room, but there are many who are not familiar with the history of Freedmen's Bank. So Freedmen's Savings Bank was founded by the United States Congress in 1865. It was a bank unlike any other our nation had known. Freedmen's Bank was established to serve Black Americans newly freed from slavery, to help them build wealth and to build a better future. At Freedmen's, to open a savings account, you just needed 5 cents, which, as I've calculated, is about $1 today. In the years after its founding, tens of thousands of Black families opened an account at Freedmen's. They saved up to buy a farm, to build a home, to open a business. Even school children saved their pocket money to deposit it in this institution. And then
notice she started out talking about Black families in particular, but we'll continue.
9 years later, after the bank first opened its doors, because of an economic downturn and because of the organized assault on the project of Reconstruction, Freedmen's Bank was forced to close. Over 60,000 people lost their savings. Now, Freedmen's Bank was guided by a vision. The vision of an economy that works for all Americans.
The vision of an economy that works for all Americans. Can follow me, see what she's doing.
And includes all Americans. The vision of a nation in which all people have access to the financial resources they need to succeed, to thrive, and to determine their own future. Truly at the heart of that bank was the concept of self-determination. Over a century and a half later, in communities across our nation, that vision remains unrealized. Consider, today, Black entrepreneurs are 3 times more likely to report that they did not apply for a loan for fear of being turned away by a bank, often anecdotally because they heard about that experience from friends and relatives. Today, Black and Latino homeowners are rejected by traditional financial institutions at a higher rate.
See how she stuck that in there? Freedmen's was created for newly freed slaves, but she gonna keep on going. So she started with blacks exclusively, then she goes to all Americans, and then she goes to Black and Latino. Yeah, but she'll keep going. Let's continue.
When applying for home loans. And this is the case even when they have credit profiles similar to other applicants. Today, many immigrant business owners, including some Asian American business owners, face language barriers that limit.
And now she builds up on that and she inserts Asian Americans. Just follow it, y'all.
Their ability to access capital and banking services. And people who live in rural areas, including many Native Americans, often lack. So
now she added rural areas and Native Americans to the piece of the pie. See what she doing? Let's continue. Remember, Freedmen's Bank, newly freed slaves.
Access to traditional financial services of any kind. So President Biden and I know that for our nation to succeed, these disparities must be spoken of, acknowledged, and addressed. One of the last actions, as you heard Secretary Yellen mentioned, I took as a United States Senator was to team up with Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Mark Warner and Senator Cory Booker and Chairwoman, Maxine Waters, to invest $12 billion in community lenders, which of course are financial institutions that predominantly do business in overlooked and underserved communities. Last month, I was proud.
See, look at that very vague term. Overlooked and underserved communities. Your ears have to perk up anytime they talk like this. And then when they say people of color, who the fuck is the people of color? I don't know no people of color. Well, what is the people of color?
To announce that because of that hard work and the work of many of the leaders in this room, our administration has distributed more than $8 billion of that investment to 162 community lenders across our nation. That is $8 billion on the ground in communities across our nation right now. And I'll share with you some of the examples. In North Dakota, Native American Bank lent $10 million to help fund an opioid addiction treatment facility on tribal lands.
There you go. So they're trying to do some of the same stuff, give that amount to Native Americans, but let's continue.
In Georgia, Carver Bank lent over $500,000 to help Black-owned companies build affordable housing.
And $8 million to that number to the Black Bank. All right, let's see what she did in Mississippi.
And in Mississippi, Hope Credit Union, led of course by the great Bill Bynum, lent $10,000 to a Black-owned and woman-owned coffee company to help.
Oh, you give them a whole $10,000? Oh my goodness, how generous.
Them expand. And that's just one example of the incredible work that they do there. Since taking office, then I will tell you I have traveled our nation and spoken with small business owners who have received funds from community lenders. And I have seen what it means in terms of in terms of acknowledging, recognizing, and then feeding their ambition and aspiration and creativity, both in terms of their own aptitude and capacity, but also because they are in the best position to understand the needs and the capacity of their communities. And I've seen how they use that capital to hire people from the community, to open a new storefront on the main street, how they buy inventory from local businesses. The whole community benefits in one way or another, economically, not to mention psychically, from their presence.
Psychically?
And at the same time, I have also seen how the great need for capital still remains in our country, meaning how much more work we still have yet to do. You know, I hope and know that everyone here does get the opportunity to travel our country. And from my travels, I will share with you, there are so many people in our country that have incredible dreams, fueled by their ambition, fueled by their aspiration, fueled by seeing what is possible and then going for it. But far too many still lack the resources and the support to make those dreams a reality. And what ends up happening then is these entrepreneurs cannot access capital to start a business. We're talking about families who then cannot access the capital they need to buy a home, students who cannot access capital to get an education because they live in an underserved community.
There's another one of those buzzwords, underserved community. It's vague, which means it doesn't have to go to a certain community. So keep in mind with these words.
And because often they also do not have the benefit of intergenerational wealth. We need to address this because, again, there is a complete disconnect between their inability to grow and the fact that they are so talented and desirous of doing just that. So let's deal with that disconnect, which we also refer to as disparities, because we see that people in our country are having an experience that is not equal. And that's why we talk about equity, because we recognize not everybody starts out on the same base. They don't start out in the same place, even though they have the same God-given capacity. So when we talk about the work we are doing here together, it is recognizing that and being guided by this principle of what we must do in the spirit and in the interest of equity. And to do this, one of the aspects of the success we have seen so far is the benefit and the incredible power of public-private partnership. The public and the private sector joining together. And what we have been doing and must do more is to combine the expertise and the experience of the private sector with the reach and the scale that only the government can provide. And together, that is what we have done so far, which has resulted in the success we have seen. As Secretary Yellen mentioned, earlier this year, we launched the Economic Opportunity Coalition. This coalition consists of over 20 private sector organizations. It includes technology companies, philanthropies, and some of the largest consumer banks and investment firms. And together, these private sector leaders have committed tens of billions of dollars to promote and then provide capital to community lenders, to support entrepreneurship and minority-owned businesses.
And another one of those buzzwords, in an effort to not give money directly to Black folks, minority owned, or just minority. That can be women, all women, including white women, Asians, Arabs, Black, Latino, and others. You see what's going on here? If you're not, I'm going to sum it up here in a minute.
And to expand access to financial services, and to create and protect affordable housing. And today, this coalition has committed more than $1 billion to community banks serving minority and rural communities.
There we go again. Minority and rural communities. Just vague. When your agenda is to give it to a certain group and not give it to a certain group. I'm going to sum it up.
So all of our work thus far, we still have more to do. All of our work thus far, I believe, comes down to this. America is a nation driven by the ambition and aspiration of her people. And so let us continue to fight to make sure all people have a chance to realize their
all
dreams
people.
And to determine their own future. Because when we do, we not only advance economic justice, we strengthen our economy as a whole, creating prosperity and opportunity for all.
For all.
Together, we here know we have the ability and the responsibility and the duty, dare I say, to realize the vision of Freedmen's Bank. And that is what we have gathered here to do. So thank you all so very much for your vision, for your commitment, and your work. Thank you.
So, to sum this all up, to recap, the Freedmen's Bank was a bank and trust established by the government to assist newly freed slaves in more ways than just money. But that was its initial purpose. So what happens is, and she said this, and you again, if I could edit, I'd put the clip right here, but I still got to practice with editing. She said specifically, no, I'm not going to do anything for black folks, just in particular. No, those words that came out of her mouth, quote unquote. And her body language when she did that was just like, what? Please, nigga, please. That was her body language. And so look what she did in this speech. She took it from talking about just black people, which this whole forum is about, newly freed slave, to include every single group that you can think of, except white men. But other than that, she moved it from that to every single group. Now, it seems like anytime that there's some type of proposal, initiative, this, that, and the other that is specifically for black folks, it ended up getting spread out for everybody. But in 2023, Kamala Harris got $26.4 billion specifically for Asian American businesses, including grants and all of that type of other stuff. So I'm just going to leave that right there.